Celebrating leaders in Rochester's unique and vibrant business community, we'll meet entrepreneurs whose passion and perseverance have helped push through life's challenges. Join us as we share their stories and journeys to success. It's time to be inspired.
Orlando, thank you very much for being in Be Inspired, a show that we created to inspire our community, to highlight people like you who have been in business, very involved with the community. But tell us, who is Orlando?
Well, thanks for having me here today. Very inspired to be here. As you mentioned, Orlando Ortiz. I was born in Puerto Rico, in Calle, Puerto Rico, and my family moved to Rochester when I was 10. They came here on a month vacation and they decided to stay. So my family ended up growing, we ended up being raised here in Rochester. Went through a public school system here in Rochester. I went to number 9 school, Monroe Middle School, and Edison Tech. And at Edison, I ended up doing some machining program. And almost kick-started my career in terms of getting into the manufacturing world, and just kind of giving me that mindset of getting into college as well.
So you grew up here, but you were born in Puerto Rico. Now, Orlando, you have been in business. You have been working in business. Tell us a little bit about that part of your life.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of started at the age of 10, actually. When my family moved here, my uncle owned Rivera's Market, which was a very well-known establishment, grocery store here in Rochester. And he allowed me to work in his store a few hours a day, just to kind of get that mindset of dedication, hard work, and kind of earning, some money for something that you want to do. And that kind of gave me that mindset to be able to continue doing what I was doing. And at the age of 16, while attending Edison Tech High School, I started working at Gleason Works. And throughout that whole time, I was, working. I went to college. And, it wasn't until I was in college that I started volunteering with the Puerto Rican Festival, and kind of giving me that business mindset of putting events together, working with different departments within our IT, and just kind of doing stuff that I really, really was passionate about, and that was to allow people to have a great time in whatever I was doing, whether that be an event, a leadership panel, just different things that we were doing within our IT, and then that transferred over to the community as well via the Puerto Rican Festival, and which I've been a part of now for 15 years. So a lot of people, when I tell them, I've been with the festival for 15 years, they're kind of shocked. And then they're even more shocked when I say it's all volunteer based, which is an amazing feat for not only myself, but the board members that have been a part of the festival, because everybody sees me, but we have a whole team behind me putting the whole festival together, and that takes a lot of work and dedication for board members. And a lot of those skills that I'm learning within the Puerto Rican Festival, they're transferable to my own career. And that's the neat thing about being involved, or that I found out, being involved in different organizations, is the ability to kind of play in a sandbox, so to speak, and learn these leadership skills, and opportunity to give back, but also being able to improve my own personal and professional development.
Orlando, you just mentioned personal and professional development. Speaking of that, I know you have your MBA and your undergraduate from RIT. Did you take some time off in between, or did you work for a little while?
Yeah, so I took about 1.5 years in between my undergraduate, bachelor's, and the MBA. And I wanted to get a little experience working. And at that point, I started deciding, okay, do I want to go back to school? What do I want to go back to school for? Master's in engineering was an option, but I also didn't want to get pigeonholed into just the engineering field. So I wanted to get into the business side and kind of get that management feel and understanding, because I knew eventually I would want to get into the management world. And between the MBA, my engineering background, and the machining background that I had within Gleason and Edison Tech, that gave me a well-rounded, opportunity and just experience to be able to be successful.
And building on that question, for our folks listening at home or watching the show, what tips would you give them in order to be successful at going back to school? And did you continue to work full-time?
Yeah, so I would say my undergraduate, I was actually working part-time and going to school full-time. And Gleason was amazing enough to allow me to go to school full-time, work part-time, and then my MBA was actually the flip side. So I was working full-time and going to school part-time. And you know, obviously it is a challenge. You're trying to balance work life, home life, and school life. And you know, obviously you need a strong support at home to be able to do that. And I did. I had a strong network of friends and family members that encouraged me and supported me. But also it was important for Gleason at the time to be able to support me in what I wanted to do. So I took my time. It took me about 2 years to get my MBA, going part-time. And you know, it goes faster than you think. You know, I always think about a famous quote by Henry Ford. It says, "Obstacles are the frightful things you see when you take your eyes off the goal." And I always looked at, my goal was to get an MBA, and if I always looked at, you know, the obstacles of, okay, I'm tired or I have a lot going on, I would have lost sight of that end goal. And so I always keep that quote with me in everything that I do.
But that's powerful, Orlando, and what I love is that you identify a way to balance your life, be effective in many things that you do. And you just received an award, the Rochester Hispanic Business Person of the Year, Rochester Business Association. What a great award, congratulations around that.
Thank you.
But tell us, what will be the message to the next generation? To the people, you know, who are in the university right now, they may start their careers. What are the key things to achieve success?
So, you know, I go back to my time at RIT. At RIT, I joined Lambda Alpha Upsilon fraternity, and that was the catalyst for me to kind of get out of my shell. If it wasn't a fraternity, I was part of LASA, which is Latin American Student Association. There's many different clubs and organizations within the college campus that you can be a part of. And within each of those organizations, there's different roles. So you have your e-board, you have your presidents, VPs, treasurers, and then, you know, you're also doing different events, leadership events or educational events, social events. And all those events, depending on what your future aspirations are almost kind of like a microcosm of what you can transfer into your careers. So for example, I love project management. I do some of that at work today. And, you know, being at RIT, putting a large-scale Latino concert at RIT in 2005 like we did, I looked at that as a project. So you have different breakdowns and you have to execute. You have to ask different people. You have to, you know, connect with different administrations. And that's what I do at work today. You know, we have a project. We have to network with different departments and get a buy-in from everybody. So my advice to somebody that's, you know, in college today is to not minimize some of those opportunities that you have today at RIT or, you know, wherever they're going to college. Because those could be easily transferable to your professional careers. At the same time, I use that as a differentiating factor between myself and another candidate. I always looked at it as, you know, you and I graduated from RIT at the same time with the same degree, and we're both going to the same interview. You know, what's going to differentiate me, you know, you and I from each other, and how can I get that position? And when in an interview, if the interviewee would ask me, you know, what leadership, you know, opportunities have you taken advantage of while at RIT? For me, I would almost think to myself, oh, I have this. Not to be cocky, but, you know, I felt very confident that I could talk to all those leadership opportunities that I had at RIT and how they would transfer to my professional career.
And continuing that theme of drawing from your diverse experiences, what would you say are some of the lessons you learned working, volunteering in your uncle's grocery store when you were a kid?
So those little small jobs, as I call them, you know, it's like, you know, showing up to work, you know, even though it was after school for a couple of hours, and being responsible for the cooler, you know, making sure that it's stocked, you know, those little things that I thought, oh, I'm just here to, you know, earn maybe a few dollars a week, so to speak. And, you know, seeing my dad used to work there as well, so seeing the amount of work that, you know, he was putting into it, seeing all the work that, you know, my family was doing to keep up with the store. That entrepreneur spirit kind of, you know, got inside me, and that's kind of, you know, helped guide me. So it's all about mindset. So it gave me a good foundation for my work ethic, showing up on time, and just being committed to something, not just everything, but something you're really passionate about.
And that's a great model. One of the things that I love of you is that you get involved and you really work hard. And I think the work ethic is fundamental and is essential. And now, being part of this community, the Hispanic community, we are celebrating the Hispanic Heritage Month, a very important month for our community. And what are the key changes that you saw in the Hispanic community here in Rochester? You have been interacting a lot with the Hispanic community. What are the crucial changes that you are seeing since you started being involved with the community here?
So, you know, I kind of go back to when I became president of the Puerto Rican Festival. And, you know, one of the things that at the time, 10 years ago, was the Puerto Rican Festival organization was just a 3-day weekend, and then that's it. One of the things that we wanted to do was expand that throughout the year and kind of move into a multifaceted, you know, organization and have different events throughout the year, just to connect different, you know, people and communities, you know, in Rochester. Since then, there's a lot happening within the Latino community. There's a lot of new organizations. There wasn't even a theater company back, you know, 10 years ago, and now there's probably a couple now, and they do a lot of different Latino plays. There's just a lot of activity within the Latino community, which I think is awesome. It's awesome that we can celebrate together, and obviously with the Hispanic Heritage Month, you know, that we are now, it almost kind of like celebrates everybody that, you know, that's here. But I also feel like it's not just the 1 month, right? You know, there's a jam-packed month of events happening, and we all hang out and see quite a lot of the same people at these different events. But I also want to make sure that, you know, we're celebrating our cultures throughout the whole year, and not just, you know, the Hispanic Heritage Month. And, you know, and similar, that's the mindset that we had with the Puerto Rican Festival 10 years ago, is to celebrate our culture throughout the year. You never know, you know, you can celebrate and educate others, you know, throughout the year, and not just during that Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Orlando Ortiz. And that's one of the things I was actually going to ask you about, because I can see the entrepreneurial spirit in the festival since you've taken over, and so you now have events throughout the year. What are some of those events?
So yeah, so we have a comedy show, which is probably outside of the festival is one of my favorite shows. I love comedy. We have a comedy show. We have a film festival, which this year we partnered with the Fringe Festival and did a pedestrian driving and showed Residente, which is an awesome film. If you haven't watched it, I highly suggest it. We also have a parranda, which is typically held in January, and it's just amazing to be able to bring, you know, something as simple as a trio singing, you know, typical Puerto Rican music, and just kind of seeing the community react to that, and just say, oh wow, I remember, you know, being in Puerto Rico and listening to these songs. And although, you know, it's tough to go around house to house like they do in Puerto Rico in January, we try to bring that to a particular establishment and kind of bring that here. So that's another event. We've had Latino pairing with Puerto Rican pairing with wine, which has been a tremendous success. There was a couple other ones.
The pageant?
The pageant, we had the Miss Puerto Rico of Rochester pageant, which has been a staple event for us, and we just celebrated our 50th anniversary for that as well with the Puerto Rican Festival. And then the 5K race in honor of Staff Sergeant Javier Ortiz, who was killed and was actually my brother, or is my brother, was killed in Afghanistan almost 10 years ago. So that's something that we as a festival continue to do every year in honor of him.
That is important, the aspect of connecting a community that has contributed so much to this town, to this nation. What will be the message to that next generation of Hispanic, you know, second, third generation? How important it is to keep the roots and to be able to enrich this beautiful country. What will be the message for that next generation?
I think that's a very important question. I think one of the things that, like, for example, for us, one of the key takeaways that I get from the festival weekend It's not just to, we like to have fun, we like to listen to music, eat the food that we do during the festival weekend. But for me, I guess the payment for us as volunteers is to see the young kids attending the festival, waving that Puerto Rican flag, wearing the Puerto Rican or Puerto Rican flag colors, understanding who we are, where we come from, so that, as they grow older, they can kind of have that connection, because growing here in the United States, you can easily detach from that, that culture. So for me, it's very important to continue that tradition of, yes, we're in the United States, and there's a culture here, but also we have different roots, and we want to make sure that we teach that and pass it along to the younger generation.
That's really, really important. And you're involved in so many things. You also recently had a concert that you helped organize here in town, and that's one of your other businesses as a promoter?
Yeah, so, a couple of years ago, as a result of just my involvement, I like to put events together. I like to see people enjoying themselves. The city of Rochester actually put out an RFP for a Latino concert, and I was one of the ones that was selected to put together that concert, which just happened at the beginning of the Hispanic Heritage Month. And, I wanted to kind of do that because I know that, we have a great team in my staff as a business, not the Puerto Rican Festival. And, I have an ability to put something together that's of high quality. And we did. We had a great event. We had a great turnout. The weather was beautiful. And, as part of the city of Rochester, they want to continue to do family-friendly, events here in Rochester, and, to kick off the Hispanic Heritage Month. That was an awesome way for us to kind of kick that off. And it was well attended, and, we had a lot of fun.
It sold out, right?
It did sell out, yeah. So first time selling out, and it's just something that it was a great start for us, and, we'll look forward to that again next year.
Orlando, we believe that to be a leader like you needed to have mentors, and you need to have people who have invested in you. Mm-hmm. This is your opportunity to recognize that people that are watching right now, I'm sure, and to say thank you to them. Maybe you can highlight some of the names and the people who have impact and how they have impacted your life.
Yeah, so as being the oldest and first generation college student, I would say the first mentor, coach, and a second father that comes to me is Father Dennis, who a lot of folks in the community know him. He was the one that initially pushed me to kind of grow up and so to speak, become a man, and kind of pushed me a little bit to go to college, and always kind of had that insight that yes, you could do it, and that kind of stuff. So I always appreciate his support. My wife has always been a strong supporter. Anytime that I get involved in any organization, I always ask her first, just to make sure, she has my support. I mean, we have a family, and it's important to have that support. She's a sounding board to me right now, and I always kind of feed off her ideas and support. So those two folks are kind of the main ones that I would highlight. There's many other ones that I can kind of name. I always kind of talk about Luis Burgos, which he was always part of the Puerto Rican Festival board. And him and I are alike in terms of how we think and how we process things. And he was always one that would be, again, a good mentor in terms of understanding how I operate, because he kind of operates similarly. So he would be another one that I would kind of throw out there. And there's many other ones. Mm-hmm. And I always think it's important to have those mentors in your life. But one of the things that I'm fortunate enough now to be is a mentor to other folks, young and older. It doesn't really matter. And it's great to be able to have people come to you and say, hey, what do you think about this? And without calling you a mentor, that, you are definitely helping and making a difference in somebody else's life.
Amazing. And we haven't asked this question in a bit, but I'd like to hear your answers from our radio show, which is, if you were on the cover of Time magazine, what would you want the headline to say?
Wow, that's a tough one.
Well, you've done so many different things. That's why I'm curious to see what your answer would be.
The cover of Time magazine.
What would the
that
headline
cover?
say?
Oh man. Just humbled and dedicated young man.
Orlando, your humility, your passion, your love for this community, for Rochester, and of course for the Hispanic community has been always a highlight since I met you. And congratulations, well-deserved award, and thank you for everything that you do for our community. I'm sure that we will have you in future programs, but thank you for being with us in Be Inspired today.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Orlando. Coming up next week on Be Inspired, we'll meet Bill Ketchum, the president of the ACE Mentoring Program. To watch today's episode and the complete interviews of our guests, go to rochesterfirst.com/beinspired. For more great talk with Rochester's entrepreneurs, listen to Poder 97.1, Saturdays at 9 a.m. For Mauricio Riveros, I'm Julio Saenz. We'll see you next week on Be Inspired.